It's crunch time at work and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of November 11th, 2024. Hopefully you heard our bonus episode that dropped the day after the election. If not, you can listen to it right after this episode. We had Charlotte reporters on, our DC correspondent, Danielle Battaglia, and my colleague here, Abhi Bajpai. We talked about the top of the ballot, just the presidential race, the governor's race, and the attorney general race. And then also we talked a little bit about the legislature, in particular, Tricia Cotham, and what that meant to Charlotte. So you can catch up on that. There was a very long ballot, and there's other things for us to talk about. Today, I'm joined by Korie Dean, Luciana Perez Uribe Guinassi, and Kyle Ingram. So you'll have heard from our entire politics team over these two, part one and part two, really, of our postmortems on the election, which there could be recount, so it's not exactly quite over yet. So we'll start with judicial races, which on some years would be, higher attention, but this one kind of maybe overshadowed by other things. And one is not entirely settled yet. So Kyle, let's start with you.
Yeah, so there were 4 statewide judicial races this time around. 1 seat on the state Supreme Court, and then 3 for the state Court of Appeals. No matter which way these went, Republicans were going to end up with a majority on both courts. It was just a question of how much they're expanding it by. We know at this point that Republicans swept all 3 of those Court of Appeals races, and they flipped a Democratic seat in the process. That was Tom Murray beating the incumbent, Judge Carolyn Thompson, for the Court of Appeals. Now, as we record this, though, on Friday, we have still not had a race call in the Supreme Court race. It is very, very close between the incumbent Democrat Allison Riggs and the challenger Republican Jefferson Griffin, who is a judge on the Court of Appeals. Right now, he's leading her by a little over 8,000 votes, which is within the margin for a recount. She hasn't requested one yet, and we could see some shifts to that number as more absentee and provisional ballots are counted. But regardless, it's possible that it could change, but kind of unlikely if this much of a lead is maintained. That is a pretty large deficit to make up. It is within the margins for a recount, but it's a lot.
This is a good time then for me to ask you and tell people about the canvass and what that means, since that's, here in about another week as people are listening.
Yes. So the results we see on election night, the results we have now, are technically unofficial. All race calls are made by the media and candidates themselves. In the 10 days following an election, there's a canvass period where all of our county and state election workers go through this rigorous audit of the election results. They go through the provisional ballots, they go through late absentee ballots and determine what gets added to the count. It isn't until the end of that period that the results of the election are actually certified.
So we'll come back maybe to judicial, but I'm going to turn it over to Luciana, because that final canvass and count affects 2 or more legislative races. Luciana covered the control and the shift of Weston Hall. The Republican House Rules Chair described to reporters on Wednesday as a, quote, working supermajority, or they're assuming they're one short of a supermajority in the House, but we're not quite there yet. So Luciana, take it away.
Yeah, so during the election, all the state House and state Senate seats were on the ballot. And a lot of these seats were fairly safe or almost essentially guaranteed to the incumbent in that race. And so, the parties would keep control of their seats. But there were over a dozen or so races that were not so safe. And a few of those actually had flips from one party to the other party. And that essentially, in those party changed control of those districts, the Republicans appear set to lose their supermajority for the next legislative session. And one of the key seats, district seats that appears to have been lost at this point, was House District 32 in Granville and Vance counties. And there, Brian Kahn led over Republican incumbent Representative Frank Sossaman by 182 votes. And so that is, again, like Kyle mentioned, a small margin. So it is within the recount margin. A recount has not yet been requested, but it could be. So that's kind of pending to see if Republicans keep that supermajority or lose it for next year.
And where are we on the Tricia Cotham race?
So that one is also within the recount majority. It has also not been requested one. They have not requested one. I'm sorry, not they, but the candidate has not requested a recount, Nicole Sidman. And it appears that the margin is smaller, so it's also highly unlikely that that race will flip. So it appears that Representative Cotham will keep her seat at this point.
So a lot of close races. That one, it kind of feels like where we were in 2022 when, Speaker Moore, who's still Speaker for a little bit less than 2 months, called it the working majority. And that's what Justin Hall said, meaning that, all they have to do is either, the two different options, right, for the to override a veto in the House would be to have a Democrat vote with you or watch the numbers game of who's on the floor. Mm-hmm. And the swing Democrats are kind of the same ones as before. Cecil Brockman, who didn't really like how some Democrats in his own caucus had come at him when he was a swing. And then Shelley Willingham is the other one. Michael Ray, I believe, primaried, right?
He's not anymore.
Primary. And Garland Pierce is another one too. So it's sort of a repeat of that. And then maybe if this all plays out the way it's looking, it'll be a repeat of when Stein is, Cooper, the, voters chose another Democrat for governor. And then these by the margin numbers and the legislature. So I want to get to Korie, who would cover the Council of State races. So let's start talking about those before the break. Starting with Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, so I assume most listeners know by now that Rachel Hunt, the Democrat, was elected Lieutenant Governor. Her win flips that office for the first time in, I think it's 12 years. So, I think Democrats are seeing that as a win on a night when maybe the top of the ticket federally was not a win for them. But yeah, in addition to that, there were some other flips on the Council of State as well. So it will now go from a group of 10 people with 4 Democrats and 6 Republicans to now an even split of 5 and 5. So a little bit of shifting there as well.
That could come in play after the pandemic, the legislature put in a budget, that I can't remember if it was one that I think it was one maybe that Cooper let become law after 10 days, but it included something he didn't like, which was changing some of his control with the length and the overall duration and what the executive orders would be within states of emergency. So that's kind of when the Council of State votes matter with a half and half. They're each. It could be a party line thing. It could not be. Of course, there are Council of State positions that aren't necessarily, they're partisan, but people don't think of them that way. So let's go to that one before the break. I'm going to throw Ag Commissioner at you because it seems like the winningest Council of State member for a while won again.
Yeah. So Steve Troxler, the Republican, was reelected Ag Commissioner. I think he's been in that role for 20 years now. And yeah, I think in the last election, he did receive maybe the most votes of any candidate statewide. This time that I think Josh Stein got more votes for him than Troxler, but yeah, clearly remains pretty popular among voters. And there was, Luciana covered some controversy with the Democratic candidate in kind of the last few days of the election. So I don't know if that impacted it, but yeah, he held on to his seat and
I think that the agriculture commissioner, for people that don't work in agriculture, is probably best known for the state fair.
Exactly.
And that's what people are generally happy enough about that and have kept Troxler in there. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the rest of the Council of State races and our picks for Headliner of the Week. We'll be right back.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Kyle Ingram, Luciana Perez Uribe Guinassi, and Korie Dean. Before the break, we were talking about Council of State races with Korie. So let's finish on that. And also, two of them are things that have crossed over into your beat, which is higher education. So why don't we talk about those two races first?
Yes. So two of the candidates for Council of State this election serve on the UNC Chapel Hill Board of Trustees. I cover higher ed normally, so I interact with that board a lot. So Dave Bullock was elected state auditor, and Brad Reiner was elected state treasurer. Both of them are Republicans. As a result of winning their races and entering their new roles, they'll be considered state employees, so they will have to resign from the trustees. So that, opens up two seats on that board, which will be filled by the Board of Governors and the State Senate. So some more fallout to come from that.
What are they each known for?
Yeah, so Dave Bullock has been on the Board of Trustees for about 5 years. So that's, quite a bit. And he, throughout the campaign, touted his support of the School of Civic Life and Leadership, which was pretty controversial when that was proposed. I think it was almost 2 years ago. Yeah. And he also supported the UNC system's ban on DEI. And then he also, this may come into play as auditor. It kind of has some overlap. The UNC redid its budgeting process to make it more centralized. It had been previously pretty decentralized. So he touted that on the campaign trail. Brad Reiner has been on the board for only about a year. He was one of two additional trustees that lawmakers added last fall through, I think it was Senate Bill 512. So he does not have as much to, tout from the board, but worked in the private investment sector. He managed UNC's endowment for a while, was on the board or the company that does that, and then also spent, I think, most of his career managing the assets of Michael Bloomberg, actually. So comes from a career in investment. Obviously, that's a big role of the treasurer with managing the state pension and the health plan. So
those are two roles. I mean, the treasurer, Dale Falwell, has been an elected official mainstay for, as long as all of those with us with more recent memory, I guess, since I've been covering it as treasurer. And then, he was in the legislature before that. That didn't cover him then, but it feels like he's been so part of the, I don't know. He's just always been state treasurer for so long. And then we should mention that the new mayor of Raleigh, Janet Cowell, which is actually spelled like Falwell, you pronounce it different with a different first letter. She used to be state treasurer. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
And if you think about auditor, obviously currently that's been Jessica Holmes for about a year, but previously it was Beth Wood. And she had that role for, I think it was 16 years, and she was a Democrat. So that office is also flipping. We talked about Lieutenant Governor flipping after 12, auditors now flipping after 16. So
I think, unless I'm forgetting, I think the only person that just changes seats at the table is Josh Stein from the Council of State, from the Attorney General seat over to the governor seat, and then Lieutenant Governor Rachel Hunt. Of course, she's not totally leaving her old job as a state senator because the lieutenant governor presides over the Senate. So Hunt being a Democrat, that'll be interesting to see how much she uses that versus, Senate leader Phil Berger, who will preside when the lieutenant governor isn't presiding. So I haven't seen where it's been two different parties, because I just saw Robinson whenever he showed up at the Senate. And then before that, it was Dan Forrest, who is also Republican. So that'll be maybe an interesting dynamic for us to watch at the legislature. And then who else do we have? Council of State, Insurance Commissioner.
Yes, that will remain the same. Mike Causey, and then Elaine Marshall remains Secretary of State.
She may now be the longest serving person in her position on the Council of State. Or no, it would be Troxler still.
Yep,
but
I'm not sure on the numbers on that.
I think Marshall was in the 90s. I think she was the first woman on Council of State, I believe. Actually, another groundbreaking, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mo Green, will be the first Black Superintendent of Public Instruction. There's already a Black member of Council of State when Robinson has been Lieutenant Governor. That was a pretty contentious race that our colleague Kern Huey covered extensively with Michelle Morrow, who said a lot of inflammatory things and was not, she had defeated the Republican incumbent, Catherine Truitt, in the primary. So Council of State this week, if people are wondering, it's usually on Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month, or it was going to be the 12th because of the election. It has been canceled. So we won't get to see what that dynamic is with all the people that won and lost at the table. So maybe their December Council of State meeting. Before we get to our picks for headliner of the week, any other takes from the election and what we're looking at?
I think it's really interesting the hold that Republicans still maintain on these statewide judicial races, especially in an election where so many people split the ticket, where there were 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats elected to Council of State, but then Republicans are still most likely pending, a recount, sweeping all of those judicial races. It's like Democrats haven't won. If I'm getting my history right here, I don't believe Democrats have won a statewide judicial race in North Carolina since 2018. And they were really, really trying this time. For the first time, they hired a judicial campaigns director, which is something the Republicans invested in a while ago. And maybe they're still, getting into the groove of that. But
do you think it has to do with maybe people don't know about the races and they just want to check R for those? Or do you think it's something else?
It could be. I mean, it's hard to determine exactly why people picked the Democrats they picked on the Council of State and the Republicans they picked. But when you look at some of the common traits shared by the Republicans that lost, who were running for Council of State, they were the ones who'd been accused more so of being further right. They were the ones that maybe had more ties to Mark Robinson, who was an unpopular pick. So it could be that. And you just had, people who were standard Republicans going in and saying, I want just like a normal center right Republican. And we don't really know that much about the judicial people. So we're just going to assume that they are too.
One thing I wanted to we forgot the Council of State Labor Commissioner. So that's Luke Farley, who defeated Braxton Winston out of Charlotte. So there could have been more Charlotte representation on the Council of State. That didn't end up happening because of Braxton's loss. And then Natasha Marcus, the state senator who ran against Causey and lost, and Wesley Harris. However, Jeff Jackson, as we talked about on our the day after the election podcast, he is Attorney General. So
and Rachel Hunt is from,
and Rachel Hunt too. So okay, so maybe about half and half. So all right, well, let's move on to our picks for headliner of the week. Korie, I'll start with you. What's your headliner?
Well, it was a long election week, and the second half of season 4 of the hit Netflix show Outer Banks came out on Thursday, so that was a nice break from political news. I am a person who loves to hate that show, but also I've watched it all, some seasons multiple times for work. So
back in your pre-higher ed days.
Yeah, back in my pre-higher ed days, I don't get to do that as much anymore. But yeah, season 4, I'll say first impression, it's a little unwieldy. I think we've jumped the shark if they hadn't before, but that's okay because I'm still going to watch it all.
There could have been sharks in it. I haven't finished watching it, but I
don't think there's any sharks.
I already know like the big spoilers, which I'm kind of annoyed about, but and wasn't there supposed to be a whole bunch more Blackbeard treasure on all the episodes?
That is what I was saying. Yeah. I was so excited for this season because they started a new treasure hunt that is supposed to be based around Blackbeard, and there's been no Blackbeard.
Yeah.
As someone who's never seen this show, I'm really lost right now.
I think you should watch it, Kyle. You too, Luciana. All right,
5 seasons now.
And the big news is that it's been renewed for a 5th and final season.
Oh, wow.
So all of you OBX haters,
I have to keep hearing about that.
Coming to an end.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, since yours is entertainment related, what's your headline?
Well, it's been, as Korie said, a very busy election season. And I usually try to go to the movies like maybe 2 or 3 times a month. I didn't go at all in October. And so I'm trying to get back in on it. And I saw Conclave last night. And it's a movie about, it's fictional, but about like picking a new pope. It was really good. Really like surprising and stuff.
Are you guys going to go see Wicked when that comes out later this month?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't like musicals.
I don't know what to say to that. I used to cover Broadway musicals. I came around on it. It's good stuff. All right, Luciana, what's your headliner?
Well, this is not my headliner, but Kyle mentioned, going to the movies a lot. So he has one of those movie subscriptions that you pay like $20. Yeah, I have one too. We have them for different
movie so we can't go to the movies together.
We were like, let's go watch a movie together. And then we're like, nope.
Because neither of us wants to pay for it.
So... Yeah, well, we'll see what we do about that. But my headliner is just leftover Halloween candy and what to do with it. So if anyone wants some free candy, you can go ahead and email me. Here you go, a whole bucket full.
You should give your email address to people.
It's on my profile.
Okay,
you can find it there.
All right. Well, you're listening to this one. It drops on Monday, which is a federal holiday. I don't know if it's a state holiday or not, but it's Veterans Day. So if you are off work today, I hope you have a rest after this crazy election season. And also just thank you to all the veterans for your service. So that'll do it for us. I'm Dawn Vaughan with Korie Dean, Luciana Perez Uribe Guinassi, and Kyle Ingram. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.